What's up guys, Matty here, and for October's best plugins we have two contenders. The first one is a compressor by a new company called Mixland. The compressor is called the Rubberband compressor, and it's slightly based on actual rubber band being the compressor. It has a really unique sound and some cool features I think a lot of you guys will like. The second one is a new EQ from Sonnox called Claro, and it is really super cool. It's a great EQ for beginners and also guys who've been around doing it for a while, and it has a couple other features to help find masking frequencies that I really dig. So let's get into it right now. All right guys, the first plugin is by Mixland. It is the Rubberband compressor, and look at this GUI. It looks badass. It's very simple as the way it's set up, and we'll go over the knobs really quick. First and foremost, you have snap, which is kind of like your threshold. The more you turn it up, the more it gets snappier. The rubber band snaps, the more compression. Tension has 3 different levels, and this looks really cool. As you see, the tighter it goes, the more kind of snappy it's going to be, and if it's a looser tension, it's going to be a little more of a bouncy sound. And there is quite a big difference between these two sounds. Really cool. Over here, it has a mix knob, so it starts at 100. You can bring it down to 0, obviously. Auto makeup, I actually turn that on right when I get the plugin going because it really does help you to be able to hear what this thing is doing. The auto makeup is actually pretty good, and sometimes it's not that great on certain plugins. Then you have, your standard attack and release for any compressor. Down here you have this button called wait, and what that does is puts like a low cut so that it lets some of the low end through. That's pretty normal on a lot of different compressors these days. Over here you got the oversampling, which is always great to see. I would think it'd be more worthwhile when you're using this crunch, which is, just a sort of gentle distortion. Well, it's more than gentle as you turn it up, but it's a distortion that can add some grit and a little more weight to it. And then lastly is this tilt EQ, which, I've been seeing tilt EQs a lot more lately, and I really dig tilt EQs. I actually have an analog version here with my Tube Tech. So tilt EQs are cool. I use them on like final mixes, which is a little crazy sometimes, but just for like 0.2 dB if you need a little brightness or something. So having tilt EQ on here is actually pretty cool. Now, let's get into this thing, and you can see the rubber band snap. One thing I noticed was this thing has a little bit of a sound to it right when you turn it on. And I'll show you, I'll turn the mix all the way off and then bring it up, and you'll hear it change a bit. It might be a little bit of a gain thing too, but there's definitely some sort of saturation thing, thickening things up already, which I dig. So you can hear it. It's subtle, but it's there. There's definitely something there. I'm gonna turn the auto gain back up. So now let's bring up this snap and start hearing what it does to the drums. And it's so cool right off the bat. Just that rubber band bouncing. It's cool, man. It's better than a freaking tape machine spitting. Anyway, let's get into it. So it really is pretty snappy. It sounds really good, man. Fast release, slow attack, and it's just bringing those drums some extra thickness. So now let's turn up the crunch. And what I found sounds really cool is almost using this more as a parallel compressor, giving it some really cool effect, and then bringing the mix dive down. So let's see what that sounds like. Really cool. Really brings that kick going too. And then if you do like a fast attack, just shut it down, crunch it up. So super dope compressor. It sounds good on vocals and other things too, but I thought drums was where it shined for me. All right, guys, so here's the next plugin by Sonnox. It's the Claro plugin, and it's broken down into 3 sections. And I'm actually going to introduce these like as we go because it's cooler that way. So first you have this produce section. Now, produce is kind of made for maybe producers, right? Guys who might not know frequencies that well, but definitely know what they want to hear. And so as you see up here, you have different names for the sound. So you want more definition, maybe you EQ up here. If you want to get rid of harshness, maybe you would EQ down, bring it down here. Same thing down here. If you want some more weight in the bass, you can turn it down there. And then each one of these, 1, 2, 3, is the controller for that. So you can do it a couple ways. If you know the frequency you want, you just want to boost 70 hertz, you can do it that way, or bring it up and down this way, or use the names kind of area to get what you're looking for. So let's do that first. Let's add some weight to this instrumental, a little bit of definition, a little bit of air, just to see what it would sound like, right? Let me play it so you guys can hear it dry, and then we'll get into it. All right, cool. So we got a little sound going. It's giving us a little more definition, a little more weight, so on and so forth. So that's cool. So now my producer's friend sends this mix to me, right? I can now switch to tweak, and all these settings come up in a more like, fab filter type EQ, where you can really get into more detail with these. So you can, solo them out, or bring in the cue just with the mouse wheel and all kinds of stuff like that, add more points. Now here's a side, so it has mid side, so this is where you get into this. You have stereo, mid side, also left and right, and you can split this so it's mid side, or split it so it's left right. If I want to go to this one, I can go here and hit split, and now it's giving me the ability to tweak both the left and the right separately, which is something you could, do for a guitar track or something if you want the right to sound a little different than the left. Lots of cool things you could do with this. But also, you have different filters here: low cut, low shelf, bell, high shelf, high cut, and then the mid, stereo, left, right, and sides. So a lot of cool features built into this. I do wish they would have added their amazing dynamic compression to this. Maybe they'll do that later on. You'll also notice on this tweak section that they have more terms. So even, if the producer wants to go into this section, there's more terms for the new engineer or new producer to be able to kind of EQ their sound a different way. You want less boom, little too much nasal, you can, bring the cue in and do it like that. So a lot of cool ways to do this with the same EQ. All right, guys, so let's get into the last part of this plugin, which is the mix section. So what it does is you can use this as a way to find out where frequencies might be overlapping and making things muddy or unclear or so forth. So you can put, wherever you have this on a channel in the mix, you can line them up together and see if you're having any overlapping frequencies. Now, a cool way to do this is take all your instruments and then take all your vocal and then play it and see if there's any overlaps and see if you can clean things up a bit. So let's check that out. So you see right there, right around 6K, there's a little bit of overlap in frequencies between the instrumental and the vocals. So what you can do is just take this and make a tight cue, bring it down 3 dBs or something, and then see what that does for your mix. And you'll notice the vocal got a little bit clearer by bringing this down and leaving more room for the vocal in those frequencies where they're overlapping. They circle me like vultures, got the devil on my shoulder.
pushing my morals over, boosting my paranoia. They circle me like vultures, got the devil on my shoulder.
So if you listen on headphones or good speakers, you can really hear that that vocal pops out a bit more with that on it. So super cool to have that feature as well. All right, guys, so those are the two plugins that dropped this October that I feel like were, really good and can make some changes in your production or mixing or mastering. Some other honorable mentions might be the Slate Murder Melodies, which I already reviewed. You can check that out on my page. Let me know which plugins you got this October and which ones you are using. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below as well. If you need your song mixed and mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also find my presets and courses there too. Talk to you soon.